when this aircraft was originally offered to the public. Price at the door at that point was in the neighborhood of $750,000, and as of yesterday, we're talking $2.15 million. Hell of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely hell of a difference. I mean, so let's get the numbers straight. We never offered the aircraft at $750,000. The lowest price we ever sold at was $837,500. Okay. That was predicated on a lot of work that Williams International, because as you may recall, they were actually in charge of the whole program. Needless to say, they made some pretty significant mistakes, not only in the engine, but also in what they thought they could build the aircraft for. So when we had to change the engine because they couldn't build the engine, and they couldn't build it with a level of reliability that was even worth considering, and we really started taking over the program ourselves, we discovered that there were some price issues. And that's where the price of the aircraft basically went up to $1.2 million. And that's really fundamentally where it sat, with an exception of one small price increase back in 2006, which was driven by primarily a big commodity increase in material cost, principally aluminum. So we look at it, and when you put the inflation adjustment on, as I pointed out yesterday, that the aircraft is really going from about $1.4 million to $2.1 million. So the original airplane ended up at 1.4 because of Williams' failure in a lot of things. Inflation took it up to about 1.4, because it has been 8 years, and even though inflation's been at a very low level in that period, it's a miracle of compound interest. And so it is a true $450,000 price increase. Are we happy about that? Did we jump up and down with glee and say, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, this is exactly what we want to do? No, we didn't. And I was very blunt in saying that we had to do this because our ramp rate has been much shallower. We still see getting to a high rate, but the ramp rate has been much shallower, and that means in turn we haven't been able to get to the cost levels, because we've been very blunt from the very beginning that our costs were always predicated on volume. And so without getting to those cost levels, we had no choice. We can't continue to be a pro bono, subsidy company for every customer in the world. And so what we did is real simple, and I've always said that this was an option, that this was a card in our hip pocket, is we reset the price to lower the break-even point so that we can be a profitable company, if not very late this year, early next year. And that means we can be a much more financially stable organization.
Aero-TV is brought to you by Cirrus aircraft have always been easy to fly. Now they're easier than ever to buy. A complete line of ownership programs gives you everything you need to purchase, trade, finance, lease, insure, and warranty your Cirrus. There's even an ownership program for non-pilots. The Cirrus Access Pilot can teach you how to fly, or fly the plane for you. Find out more at www.cirrusdesign.com. Cirrus, for the love of flying.
Historically, aviation sort of looked at fuel and just said, we don't care. That is, of course, except for the airlines. But in this case, I think we're at a tipping point where fuel cost as a portion of the operating costs are going to become a real serious factor in certainly business aviation. Now, maybe not at the very high end where, frankly, the people who operate those airplanes have no price sensitivity whatsoever. But I think certainly down in the lower end of the turbine segment, I think ultimately in the piston engine segment, the cost of fuel is going to become a much, much bigger component of the overall purchase decision. And so between the efficiency of the aircraft, the life cycle costing of the aircraft, and frankly, now that people are fully starting to understand the innovation in the systems, the simplicity of the systems, the quality of the systems, the quality of the airplane, we still think this is a phenomenally compelling value argument. And on top of that, it's still the cheapest airplane in the marketplace. So is it as cheap? We never saw the competitiveness of the Eclipse 500 being measured solely on purchase price. It's always been measured on value, and value means cost of operation, reliability of operation, ease of operation, support of the company, and we think we're starting to do a pretty darn good job on delivering on all those.
Aero-TV is brought to you by
Today, there is an affordable, high-performance, easy-to-own and easy-to-operate very light jet designed with you in mind. Far less expensive than any other twin-engine jet to buy, it is also the least expensive to own and operate. It is the Eclipse 500, the jet that's easy to buy, easy to fly, and fun to own. The jet for you.
What are you hearing in the last 24 hours from purchasers?
Well, I wish I could say that everybody in the world loves a price increase, but I've never seen that happen anywhere. So it's not exactly a happy time. Conversely, we have not, and this is a very, very early stage, so I'm even reticent to say it in this fashion, we haven't had a single person cancel an order yet. I say yet because I do expect some people to cancel orders. But this is a tough enough decision for most people because of the value issue that they're having to think about it. Now, there's no doubt in our mind that some folks have just gotten priced out of the category. They just can't afford the additional costs. They were stretching to begin with. For those folks, that's part of the reason for the 400. For those folks, we've offered a real easy transition into the 400, and we hope they stay in the Eclipse family because we don't think they have a much better choice out in the marketplace. Maybe they do, and that's why it's called a marketplace.
A couple of isolated questions on some isolated issues. One, do you think the FAA is going to give you any trouble on certifying the 400 to 41,000 feet?
No, none whatsoever. There's no reason for it. This is a classic example of some people standing up and claiming expertise and not really understanding the FARs. The FARs are very simple, very straightforward, and it's no big deal to certify a single-engine aircraft to 41,000 feet. There's some people saying you can't per the FARs, and the simple fact of the matter is they're wrong. In fact, the FAA has already said they're wrong. And so it's one of those situations that we sort of sit back and scratch our head and say, how can you say this when it's very clear that's not true? And so we get mystified by some of these comments. Is the FAA concerned about it? Of course they're concerned about any aircraft. Single, twin, triple, quadruple, you know, a B-36, whatever, that they're certifying to 41,000 feet. It's a very harsh environment. The safety issues are significant. We know how to do this. We meaning Eclipse, we meaning the industry, we meaning the FAA. We know how to build safe aircraft to fly at that. And the number of engines has that's no predictor or no predicator on the ability to do that or not do that, as the case may be.
You've been at this 10 years. Been an interesting 10 years. I've been watching most of it, and I have to admit, this story's been one of the most entertaining, if not educating, and at times confounding that I've ever seen on a number of different venues. It's just been extraordinary because, let's face it, you change the face of aviation. 10 years have passed. 20 years from now, it's going to be at dinner someplace, and when you'll get a chance to stand up and look back at this, what do you want to be able to say about Eclipse at 20 years?
Well, that's a good question. I've never been asked that. So, okay, you get an A. That we made things better, that we made people's lives easier, safer, and that I think from a very personal standpoint that we did the best we could, and that we made aviation increasingly or more relevant, especially in the general aviation sector, than it was headed towards being. Unfortunately, general aviation in the world and in the United States is increasingly irrelevant because it's increasingly about a rich person's game. If you can afford it, it's as good as it gets. But you know, aviation played such a crucial role in the development of this country. Aviation has played such a crucial role in the development of the 20th century across the world. And certainly as we went into the 21st century, that was really starting to decrease. And so if Eclipse and I played just a little bit of role in changing that vector and getting it going up again instead of down where it's been for a long time, I'd be pretty proud of that.